All right, next question. We are looking at question 4. And if you look carefully at source E, it is a very interesting cartoon. All right. However, because of the multi-dimension or the many aspects of this cartoon, some of the candidates, some of you actually misinterpret this cartoon. But holistically, this particular cartoon, it is a negative portrayal of integration because of the treatment of migrants. There is, however, a reliance towards migrants for blue-collar jobs such as plumber, such as fixing things or jobs that unfortunately in society they are viewed as, very hands-on and not very important. And if you look at the provenance, horrible migrants, you come here and fix our leaking sinks. But without migrants, I think the British people may not be able to do a lot of things, because they are not interested in doing this kind of jobs. Now, in source F, however, if you look, now this is a comment made by the mayor, and if you look very carefully, he is addressing perhaps the migrants. He is also addressing even the British people. All right, or the people living in London specifically. And if you look very carefully, the attitude of the mayor, you are welcome here. We value the enormous contributions you have made, and even the positive impact of migrants. So, as a whole, source F is actually a very positive portrayal of migrants, and is even being acknowledged by the mayor himself. So, this question, okay, study both source E and source F. Having read source E, are you surprised by source F? Now, this is a typical O-level social studies question. If you could refer to all the other years, all right. Now, in paragraph 1, when you actually attempt this particular question, you need to first recognize that one is a negative source, whereas the other one, holistically, it is actually a very positive source. So for paragraph 1, you are surprised by source F because migrants here feel very much appreciated. They are welcome. They are even applauded. Whereas when you read source E, or you have finished reading source E, migrants are not appreciated despite them being important. Okay, so that is where your element of surprise should be. And if you are surprised, you are also not surprised. So you're not surprised by source F, the very fact that migrants are appreciated, migrants are important, because you are supposed to find other sources that also show migrants are appreciated. You do not use source E again. All right. Now, possible sources to cross-reference to are source B or even background information. So, what are some of the issues of this particular question? You must highlight what aspect of surprised. You must infer correctly. That means, are you surprised by the treatment of migrants? Are you surprised by what aspect of the two sources? So, you must make it very, very clear. Second is know when and what to cross-reference to. If you are surprised by source F, you must use source E. I mean, it is quite logical, why would question ask for a candidate like you to study both source E and F? You must use some elements of source E somewhere. Agreed? Okay. For not surprised, remember to use other sources as cross-reference to justify why source F is not surprising. That is something which you need to remember, especially when it comes to answering surprise questions, or some of you would call it, or some of your teachers would call it hybrid surprised. Okay. Now, there are students who, like I told you, misinterpreted source E. It is not a positive source, okay? Even if it shows that the migrants are needed, but the treatment of migrants are quite bad. So there are some students who wrote source F is not surprising as it shows that UK need migrants, and this can be supported by source E, which also supports migrants are needed to be plumbers. Holistically, source E is a negative source. So it is very hard to justify that it is very positive and that the British people or the British government is appreciating that, because holistically source E is a very negative or a criticism of how people are treating migrants. So this is the answer, or this is a possible answer. You can also refer to your answers that's been given by a teacher. All right. So use words such as contradicts. If you look at the blue color, you can write again. Hence, I'm surprised by source F, as they are or as they both have very contrasting views about migrants in UK. So you just have to make your answers a bit sharper. I know in exam situation it can be very hard because all of you are rushing. So be very careful when you interpret sources. Just because it's a pictorial source, just because it is a graph, you don't have to go and explain so much or give so much of source details, you should be very mindful of the time as well. So this is source F. You can cross-reference to source B, the very fact that, Britain is a very successful multicultural society. So it shows that, migrants are actually being appreciated, or even background information. Highest level actually went to not surprised, and it has to only be source F. Okay, there is nothing in source E that you are going to analyze. All right, source F is not surprising because one, some of you actually mentioned it is a speech by the Mayor of London. There is a certain purpose, a certain agenda. They are trying to reassure the migrants that the British government would continue to support them, and also perhaps for them to continue to come to Britain. Okay, so these are some of the marking conventions. If you see a C1 and C2 in your answers, it is because I was looking for both the content of source E and source F when you say that you are surprised. Okay, so take note of that. If you have both C1 and C2, the highest marks you can get is a level 3-4. The rest, okay, you can read it. Some of you managed to attempt the not surprised due to purpose. Okay, now if you get level 6-6 or level 6-7, it just depends on how much you have explained and how much you were very clear with your answers. All right. So for this particular question, some of you could really, really, really do it very, very well because you understood how to go about unpacking the surprise question. Some of you, or most of you at least, could do two aspects of surprise and not surprised. All right. So you'll be somewhere here, which I think is a decent grade. Some of you are even more focused. You just went to surprise, and highest you could get a 4 marks. All right. So these are possible scenarios of your answers. All right. You can listen back to the recording and you can see where are the aspects that you have sort of missed. And those of you who managed to get 6 marks, just check the answers again. Where could you have improved? Okay.